For the last few seasons, even this season, you have some fans who are high on RJ Barrett and others who just want to trade him away for another pick or another player to see what else this team can do without him. And that includes NBA insiders. And there's one NBA insider in particular that mentioned recently that he would want to swap RJ Barrett for the Toronto Raptors OG Anunoby straight up. We're going to break down that report and let you know exactly who said that. All of this and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. NBA insider Bill Simmons wants the Knicks to trade RJ Barrett for OG Anunoby, and he wants them to do it straight up. Now, if you've been listening to Bill Simmons, every time he speaks about the New York Knicks, he's always high on Jalen Brunson, says Julius Randle is a very good cog for that team, and more or less is a key for that team in terms of what they want to do in the playoffs. He also mentions RJ Barrett. He does like RJ Barrett, but he doesn't seem to like the fit of RJ Barrett on the New York Knicks. And because of that, it prompted him to suggest the following trade proposal for the New York Knicks to do with the Toronto Raptors. Per Bill Simmons, his proposal is a straight-up swap involving RJ Barrett and Toronto Raptors OG Anunoby, plus one of the Knicks protected picks from another team. If you're Toronto, why wouldn't you just flip OG for Barrett, grab one of those Knicks protected picks, and just call it a day? I actually like Barrett. He continues by saying, but when I look at a team like Toronto, I actually think he'd fit better, plus he's Canadian. He goes on to say that the Raptors are risking losing Anunoby for nothing like they did with Fred VanVleet last summer. According to Simmons, I still don't really understand that strategy. Simmons continues and states the following. To me, that's a trade that made the salaries match up. And if I were the Knicks, I would rather do that and see what it looks like before I make the Mitchell trade. I always appreciate Bill Simmons keeping it real and always giving us exactly what he feels like without any qualms about it. He doesn't care what you think about what he says. He's going to say it. So in that regard, I can understand that and appreciate that. But RJ Barrett straight up for OG Anunoby? I'm not doing that trade. Number one, he has a player option on his contract. Why wouldn't I just make him an offer during free agency? That's the first thing. The second thing is, wouldn't RJ Barrett be more utilized in a trade for a star or a superstar? OG Anunoby is neither one of those. He's probably a rising star. So it wouldn't make sense to use RJ Barrett in that regard. And if I was bringing OG Anunoby to this team, I would want RJ Barrett still on it, because I would want RJ Barrett at the 2 and I would want OG Anunoby at the 3. I would love to see what that looks like. I would love to see what the New York Knicks look like with size at each and every position, because that's what you would get if you got OG Anunoby on this team. He's a tenacious defender. That's another reason he would work on the New York Knicks. And if Tom Thibodeau is still the head coach of the Knicks, him under Thibs would be a match made in heaven. OG Anunoby and the type of defensive player he is would be elevated under Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau would take his defense and would make it even better, because Tom Thibodeau can do that. And if he has a defensive player like that on this team might take it to the next level without them having to trade for that star or superstar player just yet. So I think that's what Bill Simmons meant when he said that he wants the Knicks to do this before they make the Donovan Mitchell trade. Because once they make the Donovan Mitchell trade, they might be committed to who they have. And because of that, they may not be able to see how this Knicks team looks like with other pieces around it. But if you make the OG Anunoby trade first, then you can see what this Knicks team looks like. And you can also see who the weak links on this team are. And once you can identify that, you can identify who to resign, who to trade, and who to keep on this team. And then, once you know that, you can make the Mitchell trade or maybe another trade for another player that might fit that current iteration of that team better. But until you make that known, until you understand who those players are, you're never going to know what type of star or superstar to go after. And I think that's what Bill Simmons is stating here. I said at the top of the video that there are fans like me who think RJ Barrett can potentially become a star. He just has to stay consistent enough. But there are a lot of fans, including Bill Simmons here, that think he can't become that player with the New York Knicks because he won't get enough touches and he won't become that type of guy by playing alongside Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, two heavy isolation players in their own rights. So because of that, that's why a lot of people want him traded and off the New York Knicks. And Toronto might be the destination that unlocks him because he's playing in his hometown. He's playing with a Toronto Raptors team that needs another piece. And he potentially might elevate himself to become that piece. He might be doing that with Scotty Barnes as well too. That team might become their team. They might become that team's main duo. I understand that the New York Knicks need a wing badly, and OG Anunoby can fit that so well. But he plays for the Raptors right now. And until he doesn't, this is a conversation that shouldn't happen. Not only that, he has a player option, so he may not even re-sign. And if he doesn't, that's when the New York Knicks can pounce and try to get him outright in free agency. And they may be able to do that. Remember, he's CAA. Because of that, the Knicks are always going to have an in with him and potentially him coming to the New York Knicks. And they would give him a contract that would be worthy of a CAA player as well too. We know that. They take care of their own. We know that. But going back to this Bill Simmons trade proposal, again, RJ Barrett for OG Anunoby doesn't make sense. The New York Knicks would most likely trade RJ Barrett for a star or superstar player. OG Anunoby, as good as he is defensively, is not a star or superstar. He is a rising star at best right now. And currently this season, he's a very streaky shooter. Great defense, but extremely streaky, depending on the games that you're watching for him when he's playing with the Raptors. And the games he was playing against the Knicks, you could see Julius Randle take it to him. I know he's a great defender, but he couldn't stop Randle. I know a lot of people can't, but he really couldn't stop Randle. Randle was abusing him inside and was getting anything that he wanted to. So that sensational defense that he has, which we've witnessed on occasion, he did not showcase it against the Knicks, especially guarding Julius Randle. So he is a good player. I definitely want to say that, but he's not a star. So RJ Barrett is not moving in that type of deal. I get what Bill Simmons is saying here. I get it would probably make sense for RJ Barrett going back to play for his hometown and getting OG Anunoby in another situation, in a situation that probably fits him better where he can thrive more. I get that whole situation. I get what Bill Simmons is saying here, but it doesn't make sense. If you're the New York Knicks, it doesn't make sense. And also because of the impending lawsuit, it also doesn't make sense because of that. So I wish it could happen in terms of the Knicks trading for OG Anunoby, not including RJ Barrett, obviously, in that trade. I wouldn't want that to happen. But if the Knicks could get OG Anunoby in a trade for Evan Fournier, maybe Emmanuel Quickley, and a couple of picks, not unprotected picks, but a couple of protected first-round picks, maybe a couple of second-round picks, I would absolutely be okay with doing the deal because I would have more confidence in OG Anunoby re-signing with the Knicks after this season, even though he has a player option. Because he's CAA, I have that confidence. So I wouldn't mind that deal, especially if the Knicks already know that they do not plan to re-sign Emmanuel Quickley. If that's the case, I would rather them use him and get something for him rather than nothing in the offseason. The Knicks and Leon Rose better be keeping their eyes wide open all around the league and looking around for opportunity. Players that are not playing well, that are on the low right now, that they can get for a cheap price, that they can add to this team to hopefully help them with spacing, with shooting, with size. That's the moves that Leon Rose needs to make right now while being patient, waiting for that star or superstar player that they want. Key word there, that they want and that fits this current Knicks roster, that they can add to this team, that can help this team take it to the next level, take that next step to greatness, be an actual contender in the NBA. We're all waiting for that move. I don't think RJ Barrett straight up for OG Anunoby is that move. All respect in the world to Bill Simmons. I just don't think that's the move for the New York Knicks to make to get better in the East, to get significantly better in the Eastern Conference. That move needs to be reserved for a star or superstar play. And as of right now, that star or superstar player is not available, at least not yet. So the Knicks, they can continue to be patient, hold their assets, and wait to make that move. That move and that player is still a question mark. Donovan Mitchell? I don't know. OG Anunoby? Potentially. It could be a number of different names. There are a number of different players that have been linked to the Knicks over the last few weeks. So you can take your pick at this point. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Leon Rose and the New York Knicks to decide who those players are that they're going to trade for and add to this team so the Knicks can take that next step in the Eastern Conference. We've all been patient. We've all been waiting. It's our time now. It's the Knicks' time now. We need to continue to be a good team, a great team, but also a team that can be considered a contender in the NBA. What about you guys? What do you think about this Bill Simmons trade proposal about RJ Barrett being traded straight up for OG Anunoby? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.